Now let me tell you a little bit about when I was younger, a little bit more foolish and not as worldly wise as I am now. I was madly in love with this young woman, and everything was just wonderful, and I had this chance to go and live abroad in the United States for a couple of years, and it of course meant sacrificing this relationship. And in the end, I chose the opportunity to go abroad over the relationship. And it's always been a case of, what if? It turned out all right in the end because she was an absolute nutter. God damn it, I'm taking a chance of not listening to this one ever. But yeah, everything turned out well. And then after a year or two, I met somebody else, and I did move abroad for her, and we're still together more than 25 years later, so life turned out pretty well. But that is a central theme of tonight's story. Would you be prepared to make a huge life move for the sake of another human being, to make sure that they're safe and everything's going well and all that kind of thing? Or would you not do it? Oof, it's such a dilemma. If any of you have got any stories like that, I'd love to read about them in the comment section below after you've listened to this story. Anyway, that kind of sets the scene for what's going on in tonight's story. One I think you're going to love. Exotic location, incredible characters, and strange entities. Well, without further ado, here we go with I Journeyed into the Real Heart of Darkness. The locals call it the Asili. Part 1. I don't really know how to begin with this. But, okay, my name is Henry Cartwright. I'm 26 years old and, well, I have a story to tell. I've never told anyone this before, God forbid, but something happened to me a couple of years ago. Something horrible, well, beyond horrible. In fact, it happened to me and 7 others. Only 2 of them are still alive, well, as far as I'm aware. The reason that I'm telling this now is because, well, it's been eating me up inside. The last 2 years have been absolute torture. And I can't tell this to anyone without being sent back to the loony bin. The 2 others that survived, I can't talk to them about it because they won't speak to me, and I don't blame them. I've been riddled with such unbearable guilt at what happened 2 years ago, and if I don't say something now, I don't know how much longer I can last. If I will even last, whether I say anything or not. Now, before I tell you this story about what happened to the lot of us, there's something you need to understand. What I'm about to tell you, you won't believe, and I don't expect you to. Well, I couldn't give 2 shits if anyone believed me or not. I'm doing this for me, for those who died, and for the 2 who still have to live on with this. I'm going to tell you this story. I'm going to tell you everything, and you're going to judge me. Even if you don't believe me, you're going to judge me. In fact, you'll despise me. I've been despising myself. For the past 2 years, all I've done since I've been out of that jungle is numb myself with drink and drugs. Numb enough that I don't even recall ever being inside that place. Well, that only makes it worse. Far worse. But I can't help myself. I've gotten all the mental health support I can get. I've been in and out of the psychiatric ward, given a roundabout of doctors and a never-ending supply of pills. But what help is all that when you can't even tell the truth about what really happened to you? Well, as far as the doctors know, as far as the world knows, all that happened was that a group of stupid adults who thought they knew how to solve the world's problems got themselves lost in one of the most dangerous parts of the world. Oh, if only they knew how dangerous that place really is. That's the real reason why I'm telling my story now. Because as long as that place exists, as long as no one does anything about it, none of us are safe. None of us. I journeyed into the real heart of darkness. And the locals, they call it the Asili. Now, like I said, this all happened around 2 years ago. I was living a comfortable life in North London at the time, waiting tables and washing dishes for a living. And that's what happens when you drop out of university, I guess. Life was good though, you know. Like, it was comfortable. I look forward to the football at the weekend, and honestly, London isn't that bad a place to live. Well, it's busy as hell. People and traffic everywhere, but London just seems like one of those places that brings the whole world to your feet. And one day, though, I get a text from my girlfriend, Naadia. Or at the time, well, my ex-girlfriend Naadia, she was studying in the States at the time, and we tried to keep it going long distance. But you know how it goes. You just lose touch. Anyways, she texts me, wanting to know if we can do a video chat or something. And I said yes. And being the right idiot I was, I thought maybe she wanted to try things out again. That wasn't exactly the case. I mean, she did say that she missed me and was always thinking about me. And I thought the same, but no. She actually had some bad news. She actually had some news. She had this group of friends, you see, an activist group. They called themselves the, BADS, B-A-D-S. And what that stood for, I don't know. They were basically this group of activist students that wanted equal rights for all races, genders and stuff. Now, anyways, Naadia tells me that her and her friends were all planning this trip to Africa together. To the Congo, actually. And she says that they're all going to start their own commune there, in the ecosystem of the rainforest. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. It sounds batshit mad. That's what I said. Naadia did somewhat agree with me, but her reasoning was that the world isn't getting any more equal and it's never really going to change. And so her friend said, why not start our own community in paradise? I'm not sure a war-torn country riddled with disease counts as paradise, but I guess to an American, any exotic jungle might seem that way. Anyways, Naadia then says to me that the group are short of people going, and she wondered if I was interested in joining their commune. Now, I of course said no. No fucking thank you. But she kept insisting. She mentioned that the real reason we broke up was because her friends had been planning this trip for a long time, and she didn't think our relationship was worth carrying on anymore. She still loved me, she said, and that she wanted us to get back together. Now, as happy as I was to hear she wanted me back, this didn't exactly sound like the Naadia I knew. I mean, Naadia was smart, really smart actually, and she did get carried away with politics and that, but even for her, this felt all quite mad. I told her I'd think about it for a week, and, well, against my better judgment, I said yes. I said yes, not because I wanted to go. Of course I didn't want to go. I mean, who seriously wants to go live in the middle of the frickin' jungle? I said yes because I still loved her, and I was worried about her. I was worried she'd get into some real trouble down there, and I wanted to make sure she'd be all right. I just assumed the commune idea wouldn't work, and when Naadia and her friends realized that, they'd all sod off back to the States. I just wanted to be there in case anything did happen. Maybe I was just as much of an idiot as them lot. God, we were all idiots. Well, a few months and malaria shots later, I was boarding a plane at Heathrow Airport and heading to Kinshasa, capital of the Democratic Congo. My big sister Ellie, she begged me not to go. She said I was putting myself in danger, and I agreed. But I felt like I didn't really have a choice. My girlfriend was going to a dangerous place, and I felt I had to do something about it. My sister, she basically raised me. We both came from a dodgy family, you see, and so I always saw her as a kind of mom. It was hard saying goodbye to her because I didn't really know what was going to happen. But I told her I'd be fine and that I was coming back, and she said, oh, you better. Anyways, I get on the plane, and that's when things really start to get weird. It was a long flight, so I tried to get plenty of sleep, and that's when the dreams start. Or rather, the, same dream. I dreamt I was already in the jungle, but I couldn't move. I was just floating through the trees, and that, like I was watching a David Attenborough documentary or something. Next thing I know, there's this fence or barrier of sorts running through the jungle. It was made up of these long wooden spikes crisscrossed with one another, sort of like a long row of X's. But on the other side of this fence, the rest of the jungle was it was pitch black. Well, you couldn't see what was on the other side. But I can remember where I wanted to. I wanted to go to the other side, like it was calling me. I feel myself being pulled through to the other side of the fence and into the darkness. And I feel terrified, but excited at the same time. And that's when I wake up back in the plane. I'm all panicked and covered in sweat, and so I go to the toilet to splash water on my face. And that's when I realize I really don't want to be doing this. All I think now of doing is landing in Kinshasa and catching the first plane back to Heathrow. Well, I'm still asking myself now why I never did. I land in Kinshasa, and after what seemed like an eternity, I worked my way out to the airport to find Naadia and her friends. Their plane had landed earlier in the day, and so I had to find them by 1 p.m. sharp, as we all had a riverboat to catch by 3. I eventually find Naadia and the group waiting for me outside the terminal doors. They looked like they'd been waiting a while. As much anxiety I had at the time about all of this, well, it still felt really damn good to see Naadia again. And she seemed more than happy to see me too. We hugged and made out a little. Oof, it had been a while after all. And then she introduced me to her friends. I was surprised to see there was only 6 of them, as I just presumed there was going to be a lot more. But who in their right mind would agree to go along with all of this? Well, the first 6 members of this group were Beth, Chantal, and Angela. Beth and Angela were a couple, and Chantal was Nadia's best friend. Even though we didn't know each other, Chantal gave me a big hug, as though she did. That's Americans for you, I guess. The other 3 members were all lads, Ty, Jerome, and Moses. And Moses was the leader. He was this tall, intimidating guy who looked like he only worked out his chest. And he wore this gold cross necklace as though to make himself look important. Now, Moses wasn't his real name. It's just what he called himself. He was a kind of religious nut of sorts, but he looked more like an American football player than anything else. Now, right from the beginning, Moses never liked me. Whenever he even acknowledged me, he would call me something like Oliver Twist or Mary Poppins. Either that or he would try mimicking my accent to make me sound like a chimney sweeper or something. Jerome was basically a copy and paste version of Moses. It's like he idolized him or something, always following him around and repeating whatever he said. And then there was Ty. Even for a guy, I could tell that Ty was good looking. He kind of looked like a Rastafarian, but his dreads only went down to his neck. Out of the 3 of them, Ty was the only one who bothered to shake my hand. But something about it seemed disingenuous, like someone had forced him to do it. I think I forgot to mention it, but everyone in the group was black. The only ones who weren't were me and Angela. Angela wasn't part of the Bats, she was just Beth's girlfriend. But Angela, she was pretty cool. She was a little bit older than the rest of us, and she apparently had an army background. I mean, it wasn't hard to tell. She had short boy's hair and looked like she did a lot of rock climbing or something. She didn't really talk much and mostly kept to herself. But it actually made me feel easier with her there. Not because of, but because neither of us were Bads members. From what Naadia told me, Moses was hoping to create a black utopia of sorts. His argument was that humanity began in Africa, and so, as an African-American group, Africa would be the perfect destination for their commune. I guess me and Angela tagging along kind of ruined all that. Now, as much as Moses really didn't like me, Ty, it turned out Ty hated me for different reasons. Sometimes I would just catch him staring at me, like he just hated the shit out of me. I wouldn't learn until later why that was. What happens next was the journey up the Congo River. Not much really happened, so I'll just try my best to skip through it. Luckily for us, the river was right next to the airport, so reaching it didn't take long, which meant we got to avoid the hours-long traffic. As bad as I thought London traffic was, Kinshasa was apparently much worse. Well, we get to the river and it's huge, I mean, really huge. The Congo River was apparently one of the largest rivers in the world, and it's basically made the Thames look like a puddle. Anyways, we get there, and there's this guy waiting for us by an old wooden boat with a motor. Thought he looked pretty shady, but Moses apparently arranged the whole thing. This guy, he only ever spoke French, so I never really understood what he was saying. But Moses spoke some French, and he pays him the money. We'll jump in the boat with our things, and the man starts taking us up the river. Well, the journey upriver was good and bad. The region we were going to was days away, and it gave me time to reacquaint with Naadia. And the scenery, well, it was unbelievable. To begin with, there were people on the river everywhere, fishing in their boats or canoes, and ferries more crammed than the London Underground. From the halfway point of our journey, we stopped at this huge, crowded port town called Mundanka to get supplies, and after that, everything was different. Well, the river, I mean. The scenery. It's like we'd left civilization behind or something. Everything was green and exotic. It honestly felt like we'd stepped back in time with the dinosaurs. Someone on the boat did say that the Congo had its own version of the Loch Ness Monster somewhere. That it's a water dinosaur that lives deep in the jungle. It's called the, Makole Bembe or something like that. Where we were going, I couldn't decide whether I was hoping to see it or not. I did look forward to seeing some animals on this trip, and Naadia told me we'd probably get to see hippos or elephants, but that was a total letdown. We could hear birds and monkeys in the trees along the river, but we never really got to saw them. Yes, I thought this boat ride was going to be a safari of sorts. We did see a group of crocodiles sunbathing on the riverbank, and if there was one thing on that boat ride I feared the most, it was definitely crocodiles. I think I avoided going near the edge of the boat the entire way there. When the heat on the boat was unbearable. For like half the journey it just poured with rain. But the humidity was like nothing I'd ever experienced. In the last 2 days of the boat ride, all it did was rain constantly. I mean, we were all drenched. And the river started to get more and more narrow. Like narrow enough for only one boat to fit through. The guy driving the boat started speeding around the bends of the river at a dangerous speed. I honestly didn't know why he was in a rush all of a sudden. We curve around one bend, and that's when we all notice a man waving us down by the side of the bank. It's like he'd been waiting for us. Turns out this was also planned. The man, Fabrice, I think his name was, he was to take us through the rainforest to where the group had decided to build their commune. Moses paid the boat driver the rest of the money, and without even a goodbye, the guy turns his boat round and speeds off. It's like he didn't want to be in this region any longer than he had to. It honestly made me very nervous. We trekked on foot for a couple of days, and honestly the humidity was even worse inside the rainforest. But the mosquitoes, that was truly the fucking worst. Most of us got very bad diarrhea too, and I think we all had to stop about 100 times just so someone could empty their guts behind a tree. Now on the last day the rain was just pouring down. I couldn't decide whether it was too hot or too cold. I remember thinking that I couldn't go on any longer. And I was exhausted. We all were. Just as the journey seemed like it would never end, the guide, Fabrice, he suddenly just stops. He stops and is just frozen. Just looking ahead and not moving an inch. And Moses and Jerome tried snapping him out of it. But then he just suddenly starts taking steps back like he'd hit a dead end. And Fabrice's English wasn't the best, but he just starts saying, I go back. You go. I go back. Basically what he meant was that we had to continue without him. Moses tried convincing him to stay, even offered him more money, but Fabrice was clearly too afraid to go on. And before he left, he did give us a map with directions on where to find the place we were going to. He wished us all good luck. Then he stops and he's staring at me, dead in the eye. And he said, Good luck, Arsenal. Like me, Fabrice liked his football. I even let him keep my Arsenal cap I was wearing. When he said that to me, it was like he was wishing me luck most of all. Like I needed it the most. It was only later that day that we reached the place where we'd planned to build our commune. The rain had stopped by now, and we found ourselves in the middle of a clearing inside the rainforest. This is where our commune was going to be. When everyone realized we'd reached our destination, every one of us dropped our backpacks and fell to the floor. God, I think we were all ready to die. Well, this place was surprisingly quiet. You could only hear the birds singing in the trees and the sound of swooshing that we later learned was from a nearby stream. In the next few days, we all managed to get our strength back, pitched our tents, and started working out the next steps for building the commune. Moses was the leader, and you could tell he was trying to convince everyone that he knew what he was doing. But the guy was clearly out of his depth. We all were. Well, that was except for Angela. She pointed out that we needed to make a perimeter around the area, set up booby traps and tripwires. The nearby stream had fish, and she said she'd teach us all how to spear them. She also showed us how to make bows and arrows and spears for hunting. Honestly, it just seemed like there was nothing she couldn't do. And if she wasn't there, I doubt any of us would have survived out there for long. On the entire journey, from landing in Kinshasa, the boat ride up the river and hiking through the jungle, whenever I managed to get some sleep, I kept having these really uncomfortable dreams. It was always the same dream. I'm in the jungle, floating through the trees and bushes before I'm stopped in my tracks by the same makeshift barrier fence. The pure darkness on the other side, and every time I'm wanting to go enter it. I don't know why, because this part of the dream always terrifies me. It's like I have to find what's on the other side. Something was calling me. On the third night in our new commune, though, I dreamt something different. I dreamt I was actually on the other side. And I can't remember how much of it I saw, but it was dark, really dark. But I could walk. I was walking through the darkness, and I could only just make out the trunks of trees and the occasional branch or vine. But then I saw a light. Ahead, only 20 meters away. I tried walking towards the light, but it was hard. Like when you walk or run in your dreams, but you barely move anywhere. I do catch up to the light. It's just a light, glowing. But then I enter it. I enter and I realize I've entered. What I've entered is now a clearing. A perfect circle inside the jungle. Dark green vegetation around the curves, and inside the circle, right bang in the middle, is one single tree. Or at least the trunk of a tree. A dead, rotting tree. It had these long, snake-like roots that curled around the circle's edges, and the wood was very dark, almost black in color. A pathway leads up to the tree, and I start walking along it. The closer I get to this tree, I see just how tall it must have been originally. A long stump of a tree leaning over me like a tower. Its shadow comes over me, and I feel like I've been swallowed up. But then the tree's shadow moves away from me, as though beyond the jungle's darkness is a hidden, rotating sun. And when the shadow disappears, I see a face. High above me on the bark of the tree, carved into it. It looked like a mask, like an African tribal mask. The face was round, and it only had slits for eyes and a mouth, but somehow the face looked like it was in agony, the most unbearable agony. I could feel it. God, it was like torture, like being stabbed all over 1,000,000 times or having your own skin peeled off while you're just standing there. I then feel something down by my ankles. I look down to my feet, and around me, around the circle, see the floor of the circle is covered with what looks like hands. Severed hands scattered all over. I try and raise my feet, panicking. God, I'm too scared to step on them, but then the hands start moving, twitching their fingers. They start crawling like spiders all around the circle. The ones by my feet start to crawl up my legs, and I'm too scared to brush them off, and now I feel myself almost being molested by them, but I can't even move or do anything. I feel an unbearable weight come over me, and I fall to the floor, and that's when I hear a zip. Part 2. I wake, and in the darkness of mine and Naadia's tent, a light blinds me. I squint my eyes towards it, and peeking in from outside the tent is Moses, Ty, and Jerome, each holding a wooden spear. They tell me to get dressed as I'm going spear fishing with them, and Naadia berates them for waking us up so early. Now, I'm by no means a morning person, but even with Naadia lying next to me, I really didn't want to lie back down in the darkness, with the disturbing dream I'd just had fresh in my mind. I just wanted to forget about it instantly. didn't even want to think about it. Now, later on, the four of us are in the stream trying to catch our breakfast. We're all just standing there with our poorly made spears for like half an hour before any fish come our way. Eventually, the first one came in my direction, and the three lads just start yelling at me to get the fish. "There it is. Get it. Go on, get it." I tried my best to spear it, but it was too fast, and them lot shouting at me wasn't helping. Anyways, the fish gets away downstream, and the three of them just started yelling at me again, saying I was useless. I quickly lost my temper and started shouting back at them. God, ever since we got on the boat, these three guys did nothing but get in my face. They mocked my accent, told me nobody wanted me there, and behind my back they said they couldn't see what Naadia saw in that white lining. I had enough. Told all three of them to fuck off, that they could catch their own fucking fish from now on. As I'm about to leave the stream, Jerome yells at me. "Dude, watch out, there's a snake," pointing by my legs. I freak out and quickly raise my feet to avoid the snake. I panic so much that I lose my footing and splash down into the stream. Still freaking out over the snake near me, I then hear laughter coming from the three lads. There was no snake. Having completely had it with a lot of them, I march over to Jerome for no other reason but to punch his lights out. And Jerome was bigger than me and looked like he knew how to fight, but I didn't care. It was a long time coming. Before I can even try, Ty steps out in front of me, telling me to stop. I push Ty out of the way to get to Jerome, but Ty gets straight back in my face and shoves me over aggressively. Now, like I said, out of the three of them, Ty clearly hated me the most. He'd probably been looking for an excuse to fight me, and I'd just given him one. Just as I'm about to get into it with Ty, all four of us hear, "Guys." We all turn around to the voice to see it's Angela, standing above us on high ground, holding a perfectly made spear with 5 or more fish skewered on it. We all stared at her kind of awkwardly, like we were expecting to be yelled at. But instead, she just tells us to get out of the stream and follow her. She had something she needed to show us. The four of us followed behind Angela through the jungle, and Moses demanded to know where we were going. Angela says she's found something earlier on, but couldn't tell us what it was because she didn't even know. And when she shows us, we understand why she couldn't. I mean, it was indescribable. But I knew what it was, and it shook me to my core. What laid in front of us, from one end of the jungle to the other, was a fence. The exact same fence from my dream. It was a never-ending line of sharp, criss-crossed wooden spikes. Only what was different was this fence was completely covered in bits and pieces of dead, rotting animals. There were skulls, monkey skulls, animal guts, intestines, infested with what seemed like hundreds of flies buzzing around. The smell was like nothing I'd ever smelled before. All of us were in shock. Didn't know what this thing was. Even though I recognized it, I didn't even know what it was, and while Angela and the others argued over what this was, I stopped and stared at what was scaring me the most. It was the other side. On the other side of the spikes was just more vegetation, but behind it you couldn't see anything. It was darkness, like the entrance of a huge tropical cave. And right as Moses and Angela start to get into a screaming match, we all turn to notice something behind us. Standing behind us, maybe 15 meters away, staring at us, was a group of 5 men. They were wearing these dirty, ragged clothes, like they'd had them for years, and they were all small in height. In fact, they were very small, almost like children. But they were all carrying weapons, bows and arrows, spears, machetes. Whoever these men were, they were clearly dangerous. There was an awkward pause at first, but then Moses shouts out, "Hello?" at them. He takes Angela's spear with the fish and starts slowly walking towards them. We all tell him to stop, but he doesn't listen. One of the men starts approaching Moses. Looks like he's their leader. There's only like 5 meters between them when Moses starts speaking to the man, telling them we're Americans and we don't mean them any harm. He then offered Angela's fish to the man, like an offering of some sort. Well, the way Moses went about this was very patronizing. He spoke slowly to the man, as he probably didn't know any English. But, well, he was wrong. In broken English, the man said, "You American?" Moses then says loudly that we're African American, like he forgot me and Angela were there. He again offers the fish to the man and says, "Here, we offer this to you." The man looks at the fish, almost insulted, but then he looks around past Moses and straight at me. The man stares at me for a good long time, and even though I was afraid, I just stared right back at him. I thought that maybe he'd never seen a white man before, but something tells me he was something else. The man continues to stare at me with wide eyes, and then he shouts, "Our fish. You take our fish." Frightened by this, we all start taking steps backwards, closer to the fence, and all Moses can do is stare back at us. The man then takes out his machete and points it towards the fence behind us. And he yells, "No safe here. You go home. Go back, America." The men behind him also began shouting at us, waving their weapons in the air, almost ready to fight us. We couldn't understand the language they're shouting at us in, but there was one word, a word I still remember. They were shouting at us, "Asili, Asili, Asili," over and over. Moses, the idiot he was, he then approached the man, trying to reason with him. The man then raises his machete up to Moses, threatening him with it. Moses throws his hands up for the man not to hurt him, and then he slowly makes his way back to us without turning his back to the man. As soon as Moses reaches us, we head back in the direction we'd come from, back to the stream and the commune. But the men continue shouting and waving their weapons at us. As soon as we lose sight of them, we run. When we got back to the commune, we tell the others what had just happened, as well as what we'd seen. Like we thought they would, they freaked the fuck out. Well, we all speculated on what the fence was. Angela said that it was probably a hunting ground that belonged to those men, which they'd barricaded and made to look menacing to scare people off. This theory made the most sense. But what I didn't understand was, how the hell had I dreamed of it? How the hell had I dreamed of that fence before I even knew it existed? I didn't tell the others this because I was scared that they might think, well, what they might think. But when it was time to vote on whether we stayed or went back home, I didn't waste a second in raising my hand in favor of going. It was the same for everyone else. The only one who didn't raise their hand was Moses. He wanted to stay. This entire idea of starting a commune in the rainforest, it was his. It clearly meant a lot to him, even at the cost of his life. His mind was more than made up on staying, even after having his life threatened. And he made it clear to the group that we were all staying where we were. And we all argued with him, told him he was crazy, and things were quickly getting out of hand. But that's when Angela took control. Once everyone had shut the fuck up, she then berated all of us. She said that none of us were prepared to come here, and that we'd all had no idea what we were doing. She was right. We didn't. She then said that all of us were going to go back home, no questions asked, like she was giving us an order. And if Moses wanted to stay, he could. He'd be more than likely here to die alone. Moses said he was willing to die here, to be a martyr to the cause or some shit like that. But by the time it got dark, we all agreed that in the morning, we were all going back downriver and back to Kinshasa. Despite being completely freaked out that day, I did manage to get some sleep. I knew we had a long journey back ahead of us, and even though I was scared of what I might dream, I slept anyways. And there I was, back at the fence. I moved through it, through to the other side. Darkness and identical trees all around, and again I see the light, and again I'm back inside of the circle, with the huge black rotting tree stood over me. But what's different was, the fence wasn't there. It was just the tree, but I could hear breathing coming from it. Soft but painful breathing, like someone was suffocating. Remembering their hands, I look around me, but nothing's there. It's just the circle. I look back to the tree and above me. High up on the tree, I see a man. He was small, like a child, but he was breathing very softly, but with painful breaths. His head was down and I couldn't see his face. But what disturbed me was the rest of him. This man, this childlike man against the tree. He'd been crucified to it. He was stretched out around the tree and it almost looked like it was birthing him. Oh, all I can do is look up to him, terrified, unable to wake myself up. But then the man looks down at me. Very slowly he looks down at me and I can see, well, I can make out his features. His face is covered all over in scars. Tribal scars, waves, dots, spirals. His cheeks are very sunken in and he almost doesn't look human. He opens his eyes with the little strength he has and he says to me, or rather, he whispers, "Henry." He knew my name. That's when I wake up back in my tent, all covered in sweat and panic to hell. The rain outside was so loud my ears were ringing from it. I tried to calm down so I don't wake Naadia beside me, but over the sound of the rain and my own panic breathing, I start to hear a noise. A zip. Very slow, zipping sound like someone was trying carefully to break into the tent. I look to the entrance zip door to see if anyone's trying to enter, but it's too dark to see anything. Well, it didn't matter anyway because I realized the zipping sound was coming from behind me. What I first thought was zipping was actually cutting. Someone was cutting their way through mine and Naadia's tent. Every night that we were there, I slept with a pocket knife inside my sleeping bag. I reach around to find it so I can protect myself from whoever's entering. Try not to make a sound. I think I find it. I better just adjust it in my hand when I feel a blunt force hit me in the back of the head. Not that I could see anything anyway, but everything suddenly went black. When I finally regain consciousness, everything around me is still dark. My head hurts like hell and I feel like vomiting. What was strange was that I could barely feel anything underneath me, as though I was floating. That's when I realized I was being carried, and the darkness around me was coming from whatever was over my head, an old sack or something. I tried moving my arms and legs, but I couldn't. They were tied. I tried calling out for help, but I couldn't do that either. My mouth was gagged. I continued to be carried for a good while longer before suddenly I felt myself fall. I hit the ground very hard, which made my head even worse. I then feel someone come behind me, pulling me up on my knees. I can hear some unknown language being spoken around me and what sounded like people crying. I start to hyperventilate, and I fear I might suffocate inside whatever this thing was over my head. And that's when a blinding bright light comes over me. Oh, it hurts my brain and my eyes, and I realize the sack over me has been taken off. Try painfully to readjust my eyes so I can see where I am, and when I do, a small childlike man is standing over me. The same man from the day before, who Moses tried giving the fish to. The only difference now was he was painted all over in some kind of grey paste. I then see beside him even more of the smaller man, also covered in grey paste. The rain was still pouring down, and the wet paste on their skin made them look like they were almost melting skeletons. I then hear the crying again. I look to either side of me and I see all the other commune members, Mosif, Jerome, Beth, Tai, Chantal, Angela and Naadia, all on their knees, gagged with their hands behind their back. The short grey men standing over us then move away behind us. We realize where it is they've taken us. They brought us back to the fence. I can hear the muffled screams of everyone else as they realize where we are. And we all must have had that same exact thought. What is going to happen? The leader of the grey men then yells out an order in his language, and the others raise all of us to our feet, holding their machetes to the back of our necks. I look over to see Naadia crying. Oh, she looks terrified. She's just staring ahead at the fly-infested fence, assuming, well, we all did. A handful of the grey men in front of us are now opening up a loose part of the fence, like two gate doors. On the other side, through the gap in the fence, all I can see is darkness. The leader again gives out an order, and the next thing I know, most of the commune members are being shoved, forced forward into the gap of the fence on the other side. I can hear Beth, Chantal and Naadia crying. Moses, through the gag in his mouth, is pleading to them. Please stop. As I'm watching what I think is a kidnapping or worse, could be a murder happening right in front of me, and I realize that the only ones not being shoved through to the other side were me and Angela. Ty is the last to be moved through, but then the leader tells the others to stop. He stares at Ty for a good while before ordering his men not to push him through, instead to move him back next to the two of us. Stood side by side with our hands tied behind us. All the three of us can do is watch on as the rest of the commune vanish over the other side of the fence. One by one. The last thing I see is Naadia looking back at me, begging me to help her. But there's nothing I can do. I can't save her. She was the only reason I was here, and I was powerless to do anything. And that's when the darkness on the other side just seems to swallow them. I try searching through the trees and darkness to find Naadia, but I don't see her. I don't see any of them. I can't even hear them. It was as though they weren't there anymore. They were somewhere else. The leader then comes back in front of me. He stares up at me and I realize he's holding a knife. I look at Angela and Ty, as though I'm asking them to help me, but they were just as helpless as I was. I can feel the leader of the grey men staring through me, as though through my soul, and then I see, as he lifts his knife high as my throat. Oh, thinking this is going to be the end, I cry uncontrollably, just begging him not to kill me. Well, the leader looks confused as I try and muffle out the words, and just as I think my throat is going to be slashed, he cuts loose the gag tied around my mouth, drawing blood. I look down to him confused before I'm turned around and he cuts my hands free from my back. I now see the other grey men are doing the same for Ty and Angela, to our confusion. I stare back down to the leader and he looks at me, and not knowing if we were safe now or if the worst was still yet to come, I put my hands together as though I'm about to pray and I start begging him before he yells, shut up, at me. This time raising the knife to my throat. He looks at me with wide eyes as though he's asking me, are you going to be quiet? I nod yes, and there's a long pause all round, and the leader says, in plain English, you go back. Your friend's gone now. They dead. You no return here. Go! He then shoves me backwards and the other men do the same to Ty and Angela, in the opposite direction of the fence. The three of us now make our way away from the men, still yelling at us to leave, where again we hear the familiar word of Asili, Asili. But most of all, we were making our way away from the fence, and whatever danger or evil that we didn't know was lurking on the other side. The other side where the others now were. Now, if you're wondering why the three of us were spared from going in there, we only managed to come up with one theory. Me and Angela were white, so if we were to go missing, there'd be more chance of people coming to look for us. Look, I know that's not good to say, but it's probably true. And as for Ty, he was mixed race, and so maybe they thought one white parent was enough for caution. The three of us went back to our empty commune, to collect our things and get the hell out of this place we never should have come to. Angela said the plan was to make our way back to the river, flag down a boat and get a ride back down to Kinshasa. Ty didn't agree with this plan. He said as long as his friends were still there, he wasn't going to go anywhere. Angela said that was stupid, and the only way we could help them was to contact the authorities as soon as possible. To Ty's and my own surprise, I agreed with him. I said the only reason I came here was to make sure Naadia didn't get into any trouble, and if I left her in there with God knows what, this entire trip would have been for nothing. I suggested that our next plan of action was to find a way through the other side of the fence and look for the others. It was obvious by now that me and Ty really didn't like each other, which at the time seemed to be for no good reason, but for the first time, he looked at me with respect. We both made it perfectly clear to Angela that we were staying to look for the others. Angela said we were both dumb fucks, and we were going to get ourselves killed. I couldn't help but agree with her. Staying in this jungle any longer than we needed to was basically a death wish for us, like when you decide to stay in a house once you know it's haunted. But I couldn't help myself. I had to go to the other side, not because I felt responsible for Naadia, but I had an obligation to go and save her, but no, it was because I had to know what was there. What was in there, hiding amongst the darkness of the jungle? I was afraid, beyond terrified actually, but something in there was calling me, and for some reason I just had to find out what it was. Not knowing what mystery lurked behind that fence was making me want to rip off my own face, peel by peel. Angela went silent for a while. You could clearly tell she wanted to leave us here and save her own skin, but by leaving us here she knew she would be leaving us to die. Neither me nor Ty knew anything about the jungle, let alone how to look for people missing in it. Angela groaned and said, "Oh, fuck it." She was going in with us, and so we planned on how we were going to get to the other side without detection. We eventually realized we just had to risk it. We had to find a part of the fence, hack our way through, and then just enter it. And that's what we did. Angela, with a machete she'd bought at Mdanka, hacked her way through 2 different parts, creating a loose gate of sorts. When she was done, she gave the go-ahead for me and Ty to tug the loose piece of the fence away with a long piece of rope. Well, we now had our entranceway. All 3 of us stared into the dark space between the fence, which might as well have been the entrance to hell. Each of us took a deep breath. Before we dared to go in, Angela turns to say to us, "Remember, you guys asked for this." None of us really wanted to go inside there. Not really. I think we knew we probably wouldn't get out alive. I had my secret reason, and Ty had his. We grabbed each other by the hand, as though we thought we might easily get lost from each other. With a final anxious breath, Angela led the way through the gap in the fence, through the first leaves, branches, and bush, through to the other side, and finally into the darkness, like someone's eyes when they fall asleep, not knowing when or if they'll wake up. Well, this is where I have to stop. I can't go on any further. I thought I could when I started this, but no. This is all I can say. For now, anyway. What really happened to us in there, I don't know if I can even put it into words. All I can say is that what happened to us already, it was nothing compared to what we would eventually go through. What we found. God, even if I told you what happens next, you wouldn't believe me. But you would also wish I never had. There's still a part of me now that thinks it might not have been real. For the sake of my soul, for the things I was made to do in there, I really hope this is just one big nightmare. Even if the nightmare never ends. Oh, just please don't let it be real. Well, in case I never finish this story, in case I'm not alive to tell it, I'll leave you with this. I googled the word Asili a year ago, trying to find what it meant. It's a Swahili word, and it means the beginning. Okay, so I hope you like what's going on so far. That's parts 1 and 2 of a 4-part story, and I will be back with you next Sunday to finish this one off. Oh, wow. Ooh, pretty damn creepy. Okay, part of the world I've never been to. Lots of mystery there, and hope you like the way this story is going, and you're going to join me again next weekend. Also, thanks to everybody who's joining in the choose your own adventure type of thing I've got going on over on the community post, whatever it's called. Yep, so we've made a couple of choices, and looks like we know where it's going next. If you're listening to this in the future, or you're not following that, then this is not going to make any sense to you. But basically, I set up a premise, there's a bit of dialogue, a situation occurs, and then you're given a couple of choices as to which way you would like the story to continue. And I'm delivering the next part of the story accordingly. Seems like a lot of fun, and a lot of people are enjoying it. So if that sounds intriguing to you, go over to the community post. If you listen to this in February 2025, if not, and it's a lot later, then maybe you can still find it. I don't know. Anyway, that is enough for this Sunday evening. I'll be back in very soon, probably tomorrow night. Till then, my dear friends, you sleep well, and don't dream of any mysterious fences in the jungle. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me, and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you